and the questions of it.
So my occupation is I'm a soccer fitness coach, strength and conditioning coach that works with soccer players and soccer teams. Primarily what I do full-time is I run my business, which is comprises a training center called the Soccer Fitness Training Center, which is located inside an indoor soccer facility. We do science-based strength and conditioning testing and training with players and teams. We also run programs on the fields of that indoor soccer facility, and I also have other trainers that work for me that go out and work with other teams and clubs across the Greater Toronto area. So I've worked in the field of fitness and training specific to soccer for 10 years. 10 years ago is when I graduated my undergraduate degree in kinesiology at York University. So it's been 10 years. Not doing this specific type of work with this in my training center. I opened my training center 3 years ago, but I've been working in the field for 10 years. So I knew that college and professional soccer teams had fitness trainers and people that work with them. So that was something that I just knew about through playing soccer at different levels, college and semi-pro, and watching on TV. What attracted me and what got me interested in working, being a fitness trainer for soccer was really that I was always passionate about the game. I played the game, but I wasn't really good enough to make a living as a player. Especially coming up in Canada, there weren't a lot of opportunities, and as I said, I didn't really have the skill level to make it as a player. But I was always into the fitness and into the training, so I figured that trying to get into a career doing that would keep me connected to the game, and doing the two things that I'm passionate about, which is the sport of soccer and fitness training. So in terms of education and qualifications, myself personally, I did a degree, a university degree in kinesiology. After that degree, I did a number of different professional training certifications. One of them is through the National Strength and Conditioning Association. It's called Certified Strength and Conditioning Specialist, and that's one that focuses a lot on weight training and strength training. It's a North American-based type methodology. I did another one called Certified Exercise Physiologist, and that's through the Canadian Society of Exercise Physiology. They get into a lot more fitness assessments and then really the physiological side of the type of work that we do, so looking at oxygen consumption and heart rates, and not just working with athletes, but also working with different types of populations. And I think those certifications after the degree give you a little bit more of the theoretical and the practical training that you need to work with athletes, whereas the degree is a little bit more just general information. Also, because I work in soccer, it was always big on me, for me to not just to do certifications in training, but also to do coaching licenses. So at the moment, I've finished an A license, the United States Soccer Federation. It's the highest license you can get in the United States, and I'm working at the moment towards an A license in Canada as well. So I do think coaching licenses are very important if you're going to work with soccer players, because you need to be comfortable working on the field in addition to being in a gym. So skills that are important I think to be successful as a fitness coach for soccer, I really think your knowledge and your background in the science of the training is very important. Working with athletes, you can't just be a guy or a girl or whatever, but you can't just be a trainer that's just focused on how you look or how big your muscles are. You have to really look at the science of what does a soccer player need. Is it important to be able to run a certain amount, and flexibility, and how do you periodize the training over the years? So all those kinds of things go into the knowledge that I think is really important. That's one, and that comes through education and through experience. The other thing that I think is important is your personality. In reality, you're dealing with different age groups, some young kids, some are college girls and boys, and there's different ways that you have to talk to them, and psychology that's involved with dealing with girls versus boys, and kids versus teenagers versus young adults. So I think if you have a personality that's positive, but also you can have discipline. You can be demanding when you need to, and also that you are comfortable working and can adapt working with different age groups and different genders. Those are the two skills I think are the most important. So my hours in a typical day, it's I guess it's a little bit complicated because I'm running a business in addition to the work that I do. So the work that I do or the services that I provide are all done in the evenings and weekends, and that's because primarily I'm working with youth athletes who are at school during the day. So they don't finish school till 3 or 4. So typically we'll start opening our center here at 5 or at 6 p.m. and we finish at 9 or 10 p.m. at night. That's Monday to Friday. And weekends, because kids are free and they're not in school, weekends are very busy for us. So we might open at 8 or 9 in the morning, and we'll work till 2 or 3 in the afternoon. So those are the typical hours. Now, again, because I'm running the business and I'm doing other things, I am involved in sports science research, and I'm writing articles and doing other things. So I would say, I'm working a lot. I'm working long hours. Typical days, I might wake up around 8 o'clock in the morning, and obviously there's some personal stuff and cleaning my condo and all that. But typically I would say at around 11 or 12 is when I start working, on my business, and I'll stay at home for a few hours, just doing, what I can do from home. And I'll usually come into the office at around 3, and a lot of that just has to do with traffic and where I live, but I like to be in here a few hours before the training starts. And then if training finishes at 9, I might stay till about 10 o'clock to clean up, and I'll be home by 11 o'clock. So it's it's basically a 12-hour work day, and if I'm really busy, I may start working right after I wake up. So the best aspect of my job for sure is basically is how rewarding it is to work with athletes and to see them get better. I've had the privilege to work at some higher levels in Canada. I've worked with some of the youth women's national teams. I've been to a World Cup with one of the teams. I've worked with the TFC Academy. I've worked with several different professional players that are from Toronto or from Canada but playing abroad, and also lots of other high-level rep and academy players. And so I think that the number one benefit or positive aspect of the job is taking someone, testing them and seeing where they're at, and then coming up with a program and working with them to make them better. And it's very rewarding to see people improve and succeed. So risks involved with my job, I would say, and this is not just my job, but I think anybody who is an entrepreneur, and specifically an entrepreneur who's working in fitness, the reality is that I would say in terms of risk, that there's a risk that you could get hurt, and the job is physically demanding. I'm working with as you can see here, very fast treadmills and weights and all that kind of stuff, and I'm on the field a lot. Most people that work, in a regular full-time job, typically their employer will provide benefits that include, different types of healthcare coverage and physiotherapy, and then me being an entrepreneur, I'm on my own for that. So, I'd say there's some risk to health, and I think as a trainer, you have to be careful about overtraining yourself, and making sure that you don't always try to do what the 16-year-old athletes are doing, because you're not necessarily in the same shape that they are and all that. So there's some safety risks there. Other risks, I think, if you think of just financially, starting a business, and especially the kind of business that I started, which had a lot of expensive equipment that I had to buy, and it's not very easy for a young person to get money, and you have to take a line of credit from the bank, and even borrow some money from family and put your own personal savings. So there's a financial risk for sure for starting a business. So I think the planning that you do before you start the business is really important, to make sure that you're not just being naive about how much work it's going to take and how much it's going to cost and all that. So there's a bit of a physical risk and a financial risk too. So in terms of the type of a person, or the characteristics that I think are good for someone to work with me and to work in this field, I mentioned knowledge and personality. I think those are all really important. Really what I look for is I look for people who are professional, people who are punctual. So if anybody starts showing up late or not showing up, that's a big problem. And professional goes everything from the way they dress, the way they carry themselves, the way they act around people, and the reality is that in this kind of business we're dealing, we're training the kids or children or teenagers, but we're dealing in terms of selling and the business side of it, we're dealing with their parents. And so there's a certain amount of professionalism that's really important that I know that in my business that if the parents are not happy with something, they won't bring their kids, they won't pay, I don't have a business, and the trainers don't have a job. So professionalism is really important. And then I think I mentioned personality. I think people that have a personality that they can communicate effectively with young kids, with 12 to 13-year-olds, with high school, and with college, that they're able to sort of adapt and do that kind of thing. Just the way our sessions work, they can get very busy and hectic, and there's one trainer looking at 5 different athletes. So I think also the organization skills and the ability to multitask are very important there. So career choices that are related to my career and linked to my profession. I'm doing the performance training side of things. So I mean, in the fitness field, or the fitness and the healthcare is kind of grouped into that field. There are a lot of people that are focused on performance and training, like me. I'm specialized with athletes, whereas there's others that maybe would work with call the general population, or just adults, people trying to get in shape, people trying to lose weight. There's a big whole industry on weight loss and that type of thing. That's not what I do, but that's one related career if you wanted to be a trainer working with the general population. More related, I would say, to what I'm doing is the people that do the medical or therapy and rehabilitation side of things. So let's say someone who's an athletic therapist, and what that means is that you'd be the person who works with a team or has a practice or a clinic, and athletes come to see you when they get hurt. So you do all kinds of preventative things like doing tape jobs and wrapping up people if they have injuries, things like that. Management of any type of injury that happens during training or during games, including all the first aid and interventions before a doctor or an ambulance has to come into play, and also various different preventative measures like testing for concussions and other types of preventive strength training and things like that will keep people from getting hurt, and if they do get hurt, that will help them to get back onto the field and return to play as soon as possible. So there's athletic therapists, there's physiotherapists that don't just deal with athletes but also deal with other people who get hurt. Chiropractors is a slightly different type of career. It also treats injuries but uses different methods and different modalities. And then there's even let's say the nutrition side of things, and dietitians and people that deal with what you eat and how that helps performance, and sports psychology. I mean, there's a lot of different fields to get into, and I chose performance because that's what I was interested in. So do I enjoy my job? Yes, I do. I love it. I wouldn't be working this hard in a job like this if I didn't enjoy it. Or I mean, it would be very difficult for me to work this hard if I didn't enjoy what I do. As I said, before, I'm definitely very passionate about soccer, and also passionate about the fitness aspect of soccer. So yeah, I love my job. So there have been some moments in my life where I've thought about possibly changing careers. Specifically, the first year that I opened my gym, which was very hectic, very expensive, and there was a lot of stress and uncertainty about the future at that time. And I think with anyone that starts a business, and specifically people that do what I did, which is open a facility where right away you have to start paying rent and paying trainers' salaries and all this kind of stuff, and so it was very stressful. And there were times when I was kind of questioning, why am I working so hard and why am I doing this? But in the end, I stuck with it and worked really hard at it, and eventually became successful at it. There's also, I would say, here and there in my career, some of the higher levels that I've worked at that you know, you get to a high level, and then maybe a new coach comes in, or you know, a new manager comes in, and all of a sudden you're not working in that high level anymore. And you know, that happened to me initially. It happened to me in the university teams that I worked with, and then with the national teams, and then with the Toronto FC Academy. So I've been kind of up and down, you know, in terms of the higher levels, and you know, I'd say that at times it can make you question, you know, I mean, do I really want to keep pushing for these things? Do I really want to keep, you know, putting myself under all this stress and being so demanding of myself? But the other side of it, which I mentioned before, is just the rewarding feeling that you get when you know, when you qualify for a World Cup, or when you go and you're on the field while your team is playing for a World Cup, or you know, kids that you work with become professionals, and you know, or get scholarships and all that. So that, you know, focuses me and gets me back, you know, motivated to keep working, and so I don't think I'm going to change careers. I do travel a lot for my work. It's not necessarily something that if you say I'm going to be a fitness coach that automatically you have to travel, but the reasons that I travel are, one, I am involved in sports science research, and you know, every year or two I'll write a paper or conduct a little study, or maybe I'll use some data that, you know, I've collected through the years, fitness testing data, and I'll either write a paper or maybe just an abstract, or make a poster that then I can submit to sports science conferences that are done all over the world. So in the last 6-7 years, you know, I've been to Turkey for a conference, Liverpool, South Africa, Japan, coming up on going to Portland this year, and Denmark next year, and that's all for to present research that I've done at these sports science conferences. So that's one aspect to the traveling. Coaching licenses or courses that I take for professional development. You know, as I mentioned, you know, the U.S. Coaching courses that I took, so got to travel all over the States to do those. And then, you know, the higher level, some of the higher level teams that I worked with. So the national team, you know, they'll do training camps in the States. They'll do training camps in places in Latin America like Mexico, Costa Rica. You know, we competed in a CONCACAF tournament in Guatemala, and then when we qualified for the World Cup, we went to Azerbaijan, so a little known country in the border of Europe and Asia. So there's definitely, you know, there's a lot of traveling if and when you do work with, you know, pro or national teams, just because of the way the job is, and also a lot of other traveling through the you know, the sports science conferences. So a ballpark figure of wages or salaries in the field is a little bit of a difficult question to answer, because there's such a wide range. I'm not an expert in personal trainers or fitness trainers, but I believe that on the low end, you know, people can make, you know, a living wage, so maybe $30,000 to $40,000 on the low end, and fitness trainers that are really good, and specifically a lot of them that are really good in the sales aspect and can attract a lot of clients, and you know, they could probably be earning over $100,000 a year, which is, you know, definitely a good wage as a fitness trainer. Soccer fitness coaches like me, it's tough because I'm probably the only one in Toronto. I know I'm the only one. I may be the only one in Canada that runs a business that just trains soccer players. There's some other businesses that train hockey players. You know, my facility right now, the first couple of years were tough, as I mentioned, but right now I'm paying myself a salary, which is equivalent to about $60,000 a year. You know, I'm also obviously, you know, not obviously, but through the business I'm covering a lot of my expenses and even the traveling costs and that kind of thing. So, you know, with a lot of hard work, you can, as a fitness coach, you know, I've proven that, you know, you can open a facility and make it work training soccer players. If you don't do that and you just do it, let's say, hooking up with teams or maybe, you know, a pro team or colleges. Again, there are a lot of people, you know, specifically in the States that are strength and conditioning coaches or fitness coaches that are making full-time salaries, so as little as, you know, $40,000 and maybe as much as $80,000 to $100,000. So I don't think anybody is going to do this kind of job and, you know, become a millionaire. But at the same time, you can make a good salary, and if you're very good at what you do, then you can make a decent amount of money.